Well, welcome back. So far, we've defined culture and we've identified the cultures that we belong to using this definition. We've also defined cultural competence and recognized the use of the term in the military, in healthcare, and in the field of education. Fairfax County Public Schools has a strategic plan to close the achievement gap, specifically for Black and Hispanic students. And our strategic plan to close the gap is based on the work of Dr. Ronald Ferguson, who's out of Harvard University. And Dr. Ferguson purports that in order to close achievement gaps, you have to attend to three things. You have to attend to content, what it is that you're teaching. You have to attend to pedagogy, the way that you're teaching. And you have to attend to relationships, because we know that the relationship between that student and that teacher in the classroom is the most important relationship for learning to occur. And I submit to you that you can't attend to any of those three things adequately until or unless you know the students that you are teaching. In terms of content, I understand that when graphic novels were first introduced in Fairfax County Public Schools, there was quite a debate among ESOL teachers and librarians about whether graphic novels should appear on the library shelves in our schools. They look like comic books. And the more and more that we began to understand that students really gravitated towards these books and they were reading, which is what we want them to do, the debate kind of waned, and now you can go into almost any public school, any library in Fairfax and find graphic novels among the magazines and the other literature that's out for students. Pedagogy. How often do I hear that we have young, somewhat inexperienced teachers in some of our classrooms, and what they really want? There's a lot of talk about young Black males and why aren't they learning and why aren't they achieving to our expectations. What they really want is for that young Black male student in the front of the room to just sit down and be quiet and be still. If I was a teacher, that's what I would want. And yet we know that for all kinds of reasons, sometimes that's impossible. So we need things like TESA, Teacher Expectations and Student Achievement, TESA training that tells us about the kinds of behaviors, the kinds of characteristics that teachers need to exhibit in the classroom. It's tried and true, it's research-based, that connects with students, specifically with students of color and students in poverty. And lastly, in terms of relationships, if you don't know why that young student from Kosovo is sitting in your classroom, or why that teacher or why that parent from Somalia is coming to talk with you, then you've really missed out on an opportunity to form a relationship with that parent and with that student. Cultural competence is important in education because of our workplaces. Fairfax County Public Schools is enormous. We cover 400 square miles. We have over 20,000 employees. And yet collaboration and communication is highly prized and highly valued. It's hard for us to go through a workday without coming across those words. We have schools that are PLCs, professional learning communities. And we're learning how to work in groups and collaborative teams. So very important when you're large, when you're diverse, and when you want and encourage your employees to communicate and collaborate, that you understand the cultures and the perspectives that those employees hold. And last but not least, I alluded to this a little bit in the beginning of the presentation, for the first time in US history, we have 4 generations working together in the workplace. And there have been a number of articles about this coming out from human resources professionals. We have, for example, traditionalists, people born before World War II, who are working in the workplace. And I have a mom who's 86 years old, and whenever she gets a call from a telemarketer, it sends her to Nut City, because she'll pick up the phone and they'll say, "Hello, Eleanor," and her first reaction will be, "Do I know you? Did I ask you to call?" And I'm going like this, just hang up the phone. It really throws her into a tailspin. And traditionalists want to know, why is it that these young baby boomers feel like they can call me by my first name when they don't even know me? We have baby boomers working in the workplace, people like me, born after World War II, right up to the 1960s. Then we have Gen X, people born between the 1960s and the 1980s. And we have Gen Y, the generation of students who were born in the decade of the 1980s that are just starting to enter the workforce. And many of them have different perspectives on work. They want to know things like, well, why can't I bring my pet to work? And why can't I release stress by riding my skateboard up and down the hallways? They do it at Google. So it's important to understand that there are cultural attributes that you can relate to or understand or need to get to know based on when you were put on this planet and how old you are. We're going to take another break. And as you go to break and during the break, what I'd like you to do is talk among yourselves about your workplace culture. What are some of the shared practices and beliefs in your workplace? And I'll give you some hints. What are the kinds of things that you celebrate? What are the kinds of things that you're likely to include in your orientation of new employees? So talk among yourselves, talk with an elbow partner about your workplace culture and characteristics of your workplace culture.
Teachers who are culturally competent, I believe, probably are better educators for the diverse students that they work with. And I think in those classrooms where the teacher has a high degree of cultural competence, I would think the data would show that you would have higher academic achievement from all student groups in that particular classroom, in that particular demographic.